forged on the gridiron in September. Perfected in the magic of March. For the fans who love the crunch of the pads, prefer a dunk, and expect nothing but the best. It's Bigger Ten. Here's Steve Dace.
And welcome to this week's episode of Bigger Ten. I am Steve Dace alongside my co-host and absolutely never partner, the one and only Aaron McIntyre. We've got a lot to get to on this episode, the penultimate episode of 2022. Next week, we'll do our in-depth bowl preview for the Big Ten. But are you ready to go, Aaron?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Let's do it. And let's begin with topic one I'm representing. It's Mich again. For the first time since I was in high school 30 years ago, and I am depressed to say that on multiple fronts. But my beloved Michigan Wolverines are outright Big Ten champions for back-to-back seasons. Hasn't happened since 1991 and 1992. Purdue, the latest grist for the mill out of the Big Ten West, although they played a pretty spunky game for about 3 quarters there for sure. Charlie Jones was the truth, no doubt about it. But the team that looked like it was the most complete all season long proved itself to be too complete, despite the fact that Michigan played without the conference's running back of the year and defensive lineman of the year. But it did have the coach of the year, and it is, again, the team of the year. I broke this down in depth over on Michigan Podcast here on the channel earlier this week. So, Aaron, I will hand the floor now to you.
So is this where I'm just supposed to fillet Michigan now?
Pretty much, if you don't mind.
Okay.
And could you throw in a few slurps? I would appreciate it.
No, slurps are extra this week. There's not really much that can be said. I mean, they're 13-0 now. The record kind of just speaks for itself, doesn't it? We said last week that, or at least I said last week, the only worry, if I had one, if I was Michigan, is that Jeff Brom is really good at just finding one little weakness, one little even soft spot, and just picking at that over and over and over again. And to Purdue's credit, they were actually at times able to move the ball quite a little bit. But
they had over 400 yards.
Yeah, they made too many mistakes, interceptions. Aiden O'Connell, for as good as he is sometimes, he makes some boneheaded kind of just why throw that type of plays. And at the end of the day, though, Michigan was just too much. And you just saw that at the end. This ending has been, other than the Illinois game, the last quarter of that ball game, the championship game, kind of like what we've seen all year with Michigan. It's just, we're just going to squeeze you now. And that's, I think, what happened. And looking ahead, which I know we'll do in just a little bit as well, Michigan's kind of, I think they've got the inside path for the college football national championship. And if I had to put money on it, I would probably, I think the best value play of the 4 teams, probably Michigan.
Well, I hope you're right, because in the preseason, I bet Michigan 10 and 12-1 to win the national championship, and I would literally win thousands of dollars if that occurred. So I hope you're correct about that. Before we leave this game, there is some breaking news that emerged just this morning, so we didn't have time to incorporate it into the rundown. And I kind of feared from a Big Ten perspective this was going down the minute that Louisville job came open, right? Favorite son, Jeff Brom, said no the first time. You wondered if he'd say no again, especially because even though these Big Ten jobs we talked last week are clearly with big-time hires like Matt Rule and Luke Fickell, these Big Ten SEC jobs are clearly in their own tier in the coaching community. At the same time, if you're Jeff Brom, you're probably thinking, I just maximized Purdue out, and now we got UCLA and USC coming into the league, and divisional play is going out the door as well. Might be the right time to go back to my alma mater. As of this morning, he is, and Purdue's in the market for a new football coach. Your thoughts on what that means for Boilermaker football moving forward?
So we're going to put to test that axiom right away where, no matter what the job is, SEC Big Ten jobs are in their own tier. Last week, we were talking about Nebraska and Wisconsin, 2 established brands. Nebraska, kind of legacy brand, and Wisconsin, a current brand. But we're talking about Purdue football now. So what kind of a coach are they going to be able to go out and get? I think that's going to be, and if you're an Iowa fan or a Minnesota fan or an Indiana fan, and you're going to be looking at maybe possibly a new coach, you're looking at what what the type of coach is that Purdue can bring in. If they can bring in a fairly good caliber up-and-coming coach, I think that kind of bodes well for the mid to bottom of the pack Big Ten teams. Oh, and other thing that broke as we were doing this morning, Jim Leonard at Wisconsin. About face, just
after
out of
saying
nowhere,
he was going to stay, and now he's not going to stay at Wisconsin.
He's saying, he's not going to stay at Wisconsin. So that's kind of a head scratcher. So.
I wondered, though, how that was going to work because when Urban Meyer kept Luke Fickell in that interim year, that was odd. But Fickell at least coached the other side of the football, right? Urban's an offensive guy. He was the DC. Now you're going to have two defensive guys that have been head coach of the team stay, and they have dramatically different philosophies in some areas. I wondered how that was going to work, but I also figured once Jim Leonard announced that it was good to go. Yep. Last night he shocked everybody and said, nope, I'm not going to stick around. So we'll see where he ends up next. He will be very, very coveted as a defensive coordinator. All right, let's go ahead and look ahead now. For the first time, the Big Ten becomes the third conference. The SEC has done it a couple of times. The ACC kind of did it the year that Notre Dame played the ACC schedule during COVID. But that's been the only 2 times in the 9-year history until now that the college football playoff had multiple teams from the same conference. Now, of course, beginning in 2024 with the expansion to 12 teams, lots of teams are going to put lots of conferences are going to put multiple teams in every year. Hell, Big Ten might put 3 or 4 in almost every year. But for now, in a 4-team, that's still pretty rare. The Big Ten did it with Ohio State taking the spot that was vacated by future league partner USC when they lost the Pac-12 championship game. Was the right decision made here? Obviously, Michigan played its way in with what it did on the field. Was the right decision here to give new life to Ohio State with the 4th seed?
Yes, I don't think it's really that complicated at all. Because you've got USC who lost twice to the same team, once by a slim margin, a second time even by a slim margin, a 2-loss team. Oh, boy, I would have had a hard time. Because, Ohio State got curb stomped by Michigan, but there's still a 1-loss team who lost to the eventual champion of that conference. They passed the eye test. I hate that, but to lose, USC lose the way that they did, what was it, 44-0 scoring run or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
For Utah in that Pac-12 championship game. This is a no-brainer.
Caleb Williams' hamstring popped in that game too, remember?
Yeah.
Who knows if he'd even be able to go in 3 weeks?
Yeah,
Who knows?
So this was a no-brainer in my mind. And I will say this now, and I'm not as confident about this as I was about Michigan beating Ohio State the other week. I think Ohio State will beat Georgia. I really do. This is the old, and I don't care if your coach is not the rah-rah type of guy. I don't care about that. It's the players themselves who've been told for the last 2 weeks that you are poop. You're lower than poop. You got blown out at home to Michigan. You got you backed into the CFP, as I put on the lower third there. These are really talented dudes. How talented are they? When I saw the news that Jackson Smith-Njigba was sitting out the college football playoff, I got pissed off because I just assumed that he was playing because of how loaded that wide receiver room was. I just assumed he was playing. No, he's been out with an injury. These are really, really talented dudes.
Mm-hmm.
And to be told that you're just poop for 2 weeks... Georgia at times has looked stuck in the mud. When they've needed to get up, they have gotten up. I will admit that. They've got a great defense, but contrasting styles, all the motivation in the world on Ohio State's side, man. And then that line that came out at 7, and it really hasn't moved. At least the last time I checked. That just seems like Vegas wants you to do math. Joe to do the math in his head. Georgia looks unbeatable. Ohio State backed in. They got curb stomped the last time we saw them. Give me Georgia with a touchdown. That to me seems like what that's screaming. And again, that's the line. That's not outright winning. But I think that Ohio State has a pretty good shot here.
I don't think that's nuts at all. And I do agree that the most deserving team of what was on the table for that, they got to pick 4 teams, right? The most deserving team of what was on the table for that 4th spot absolutely was correctly picked with the Buckeyes. If you're an Ohio State fan, though, make sure you put an extra little Christmas gift in the mail to the South Carolina football program, okay? Because Shane Beamer did as much to put y'all in the playoff as y'all did the last few weeks with just drubbing Tennessee. And then, of course, Hendon Hooker got hurt in that game, which dropped their status. And then what they did to Clemson just a couple of weeks ago, who would have been a one-loss conference champion without that and probably would have gotten that 4th spot instead. So make sure you give a little tip of the cap and a Christmas tip to Shane Beamer and the South Carolina Gamecocks, because they did you all a solid here in the month of November, no doubt about it. Let's get to the rest of the postseason. We'll do picks and stuff on these games next week. But when you look at the matchups for the Big Ten across the board, what stands out the most to you on the various bowl games that the Big Ten's going to be involved in outside of the playoff games, obviously?
Not really that much. I'm not super allured by any of these matchups.
Iowa, Kentucky, nobody's got a quarterback, first team to kick a field goal. Is that a sudden death game between those two, do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's going to be, we're going to see Iowa's either 3rd or 4th string quarterback. I think Syracuse, Minnesota, I'm just going to go through these rapid fire, give you a little thought on each one. Wisconsin, Oklahoma State. Don't know what you're going to get out of Oklahoma State. Don't know what you're going to get out of Wisconsin either. I mean, they're going through a coaching change right now, so that's going to be
Oklahoma State's got a lot of guys in the portal, man. You kind of wonder about that.
Yeah. So I don't know what to make out of that. That could be, is Wisconsin's culture still intact? We talked about this all the time during COVID. Is their culture still intact? If it is, I have to think that they come out on top. Syracuse, Minnesota. Now, that should be an entertaining game, I think. Very
outdoors
defensive.
At Yankee Stadium, right?
Yeah, but that should be an entertaining game. Minnesota is favored by more than a touchdown.
Syracuse played a Big Ten team earlier this year. Purdue beat them, remember, in the Carrier Dome.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maryland, NC State. This is basically a pick'em right here. I think that will be an interesting game.
Old school ACC matchup.
Yep. Duke's Mayo Bowl. I'm disappointed that we didn't get to see Kirk Ferentz. The over-under is only at 48 for that game right now. You would have thought it would have been a little bit higher, but NC State does have an okay defense. Iowa, Kentucky again.
And Will Levis announcing today he's not playing in that game.
I don't know what
Ross Dellinger at Sports Illustrated has this.
Now Iowa is favored by a point. They were underdogs by 3.5 points. Now they're favored.
Ross Dellinger, who's Sports Illustrated's chief college football writer, has that bowl game, the Music City Bowl, his #1 most watchable game. And I think it's just because he wants to just see what true inertia looks like live outdoors in December for 3 hours. Yes.
Because most of Iowa's defense is actually going to be playing. Their starters are going to be playing in that game, and I don't know about Kentucky. Klanga versus Illinois. That's going to be another inertial game right there. LSU versus Purdue.
It's Illinois' first January bowl game in over a decade.
Yeah, congrats to them.
Yep.
LSU versus Purdue.
Jeff Bromless, Purdue.
Yeah, that's going to get ugly real fast, I think. And then Penn State versus Utah.
I think that's a good Rose Bowl.
That's going to be a really good game.
And those could both be 23 teams. Both those teams have a lot, especially Penn State.
Yep.
Have a lot coming back. So
of all of those, I'm probably looking forward to the Rose Bowl the most. I think that's going to be the most competitive, alluring matchup. And the rest of them, I'm going to watch them, but I'm not that excited about it. If you put a gun to my head, I guess I'll watch some more college football.
If you make me do it, dang it.
Yeah.
Fine. All right, talking about 2023, your team has found its starting quarterback, kind of a familiar name to my team. Cade McNamara, who beat y'all in the Big Ten championship game a year ago, is now transferring to Iowa after he got beat out by J.J. McCarthy. And there's a reason. Some of you may have wondered if you watched this show, what was it, about 4 or 5 weeks ago? It's kind of randomly.
I know at least one person wondered.
What was the rando point of that question? Well, because we kind of had a tip on the dope rhyme that this might be coming. All right. And so now it is official. Cade McNamara is moving to the University of Iowa, will be the starting quarterback for the Hawkeyes, coming off knee surgery, but I don't think it's like an ACL kind of a thing. So he should be good to go, I think, for the spring. And it's, I think, a perfect fit for the Iowa program. In terms of what he represents from a leadership character standpoint, he is a perfect fit for Iowa. I think he'll fit very well into the offense as well. This was a very young offensive line. You have to protect him. He's not the most mobile guy, but you have to think that with how much youth was on the offensive line, they'll improve there. for next year. I think pretty much the entire line is coming back. I think you started like 4 sophomores, if I remember right. So I think it's a perfect fit for Iowa, absolutely. And depending on what maybe Wisconsin and Nebraska do in the portal with new coaches, and there are some big name quarterbacks. The aforementioned Oklahoma State starting quarterback Spencer Sanders is sitting in the portal right now. You mentioned NC State a minute ago. Their star quarterback who was hurt right now, Devin Leary, he's sitting in the portal right now. Those are guys that could definitely make the difference in who wins the Big Ten West. But looking at what Iowa has coming back, Iowa's schedule next year, y'all got the tough schedule the last 2 years. Next year it is Charmin soft.
Yep.
Throw in a Cade McNamara who's not going to make a lot of mistakes, man. And right now, gun to the head, early December, I would say Iowa right now is the favorite, pending what Wisconsin and Nebraska do in the portal at the quarterback situation.
So I think I agree, it's a perfect fit for Iowa. And, regardless of whether, Iowa changes its scheme or tweaks things or makes things easier, those are things that we've been promised multiple times. From what I've heard about his leadership, and you don't make the turnaround after the 2020 that Michigan had if your quarterback is not like a next level leader. Spencer Petras was a good leader, but not, I don't think, the way that Cade McNamara is.
We wouldn't be where we are right now without Cade McNamara, I promise you that.
And leadership is not just rallying rah-rah, it's expecting more of your teammates, and I didn't really get the vibe that Petras was ever in a position to do that because, well, I think the product on the field spoke for itself. So I'm excited just from that aspect, but he's definitely going to be an upgrade just with the tools that he brings to the physical tools that he brings to the table as well. I know he's not like a J.J. McCarthy scrambler, but he has pocket awareness and a good awareness of when to throw things away. And it sounds like Eric All is going to join him as well. That's what I've been hearing is he's going to transfer to Iowa. So that's going to be a pair of pretty good tight ends that they have coming next year. It's just I think they need to get a couple transfers in maybe at the offensive line because I'm still not sold that they made much of an improvement this last year. And then get a wide receiver. Up until about Tuesday this week, it sounded like Trayshawn Holden in Alabama was a lock to come to Iowa. There were some off-the-field issues or something, I guess, that Iowa found out about, and really cool, which I was really excited about because he's a good receiver, but that's not happening. But they're taking a look at a few other receivers, so all that is to say the pieces are there. And I think if you're an Iowa fan, or the pieces are coming into place, if you're an Iowa fan and this just face plants again offensively over the next couple of years, you're going to know that whether it's Brian or Kirk, they just can't get it done offensively and might be time to move on. So you're going to get some answers, some clarification.
You can see it coming, though. Cade McNamara versus J.J. McCarthy, because you guys aren't on our schedule next year, right? So Cade McNamara versus J.J. McCarthy in the Big Ten championship game 1 year from now.
Are there any?
Can't you almost just see that coming right now?
So Eric All made these passive-aggressive comments when he announced his departure. Is there like some bad blood in the McNamara camp against Michigan?
I've not heard much on the McNamara camp. I don't think he's happy he got beat out by J.J. McCarthy. But what I've heard with the All stuff is there was some things with the way his injury was handled and was he going to get medical clearance or not, and that maybe he thought some things were going to go his way on that front that aren't going to go his way is what I had heard.
Gotcha.
But on the McNamara front, outside of he's just a competitive as hell kid, listen, Cade McNamara is going to be welcome back on any Michigan. We could play in the Big Ten championship game next year and y'all beat us 50-0. All right. Cade McNamara is going to be welcome back to any Michigan team reunion for the rest of his freaking life for what he led last year. He resurrected that program.
Universally, that's what I've seen from Michigan fans.
Yeah.
Just universal.
And we would have been fine with Eric All leaving too, except for the cryptic stuff. That stuff, don't do that stuff.
No.
Either if you got something to say, then say it, but don't put your teammates and stuff in positions to answer questions about stuff you don't bring up. If you got something to say, then just say it.
Ill will, then wait till you play him on the field and take it out then.
But Eric All is a tremendous tight end. And I mean, those are both great fits for Iowa. So I could definitely see Iowa, Michigan in the Big Ten championship game next year. And then that would be some high drama. That would be a lot of fun. That's a little bit like when Joe Montana went to your Chiefs when you were a kid and played Steve Young in the 49ers, if I recall. It'd be a little bit like that. All right, before we get out of here, we'll have a lot more basketball talk. as we get into January, obviously. But the Big Ten off to a very strong start, man. We've got Nebraska, perennial cellar dweller in this league, winning road games against top 10 teams. Illinois has beaten, is it Gonzaga and Texas now on neutral floors?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, the league is deep. Indiana just went into the rack at Rutgers and learned it's really hard to win Big Ten road games at Rutgers. Purdue may have the National Player of the Year right now in Zach Edey. This league is very, very deep. You got time for a very quick basketball thought for now?
Just that, we will see. I always, and I agree, it's been better than what I expected. I always temper my reactions to the non-conference slate. Ask me again 3 or 4 weeks into the regular season. Not 3 or 4 weeks, 1 or 2 weeks really into the regular season. And I think we'll start to see who's real and who's not. And if it's just kind of a mosh pit and there's nobody really separating themselves, I think that's when you can declare this league is really good.
We'll come back, play our weekly game of Would You Rather here next. Time to play our weekly game of Would You Rather. Aaron, here's my question for you. Would you rather bet Ohio State money line or Michigan to cover in the college football playoff?
So right now it's 6.5. That's minus 6.5 Michigan. If it was still 9, I would say Ohio State money line. I don't know. I think TCU is just such a difficult team to put away. I would if it was still at 9, I would take Ohio State money line. As it is, I think Michigan should be able to cover that 6.5. I could see it being like a 31-24 type of game. Is that what you said on the show today?
I thought it was going to be something like 35-28 or something like that. Yeah.
I think that's probably going to be the way that it is. If it was even a 7-point, I might even consider Ohio State again. But I do think Ohio State's going to win. I'm just not super confident in it. This one is for you. Would you rather play Georgia or Ohio State in the national championship game? Assuming you make it there.
I'd rather play Ohio State. I mean, I think I'd rather play a team I know I can beat. You hear we've heard a lot. Well, it's tough to beat a team twice during the season. Actually, we've not seen that in college football. In college basketball, we've seen it's tough to beat a team 3 times in a season. We've seen that. But so far, actually, in college football, we've seen the team that won the first matchup, if you look at point spread trends, has won and covered most of the time in the rematch. So, I mean, I'd much rather, dude. If we played them for the national championship again, who's all the pressure on?
Ohio State.
Yeah, it's. Remember, I was marveling all this season. We're the team that won the league last year, and there's like no pressure on us at all. All the pressure is on them. The same thing would occur. All the pressure would be on them. There's already analytics guys saying that if there was a rematch, they'd have Ohio State probably a 2 or 3 point favorite on a neutral field. If you're Jim Harbaugh,
we beat these guys 2 times in a row. Curb stomped them both times, and we still don't get no respect.
If I'm Jim Harbaugh, I'm hoping that happens. Okay? Yeah, and then all the pressure on Ohio State for that game all over again. I'd much rather play a team I've already beaten.
Yeah.
For you.
This one is from you.
Thank you. Would you rather have your favorite team win the Rose Bowl or lose in the first round of the college football playoff?
My favorite team, so that'd be Iowa. So history is any indication, they don't really have a shot at winning the national championship. They had one shot about a yard away from making the college football playoff, and they came up a yard short. So I would rather go with where I have probably the most chance of having success, which is the Rose Bowl. Having said that, the last time we saw them in the Rose Bowl, they got housed. So winning the Rose Bowl is probably the trade that I would make. Finally, for you, would you rather bet Ohio State money line against Georgia or Ohio State money line against Michigan in the national championship, if they were to match up?
I think I'd rather bet Ohio State money line against Georgia because the odds are going to be a lot better. I mean, based on what I just told you, the analytics guys are saying, I'm not even sure you'd get plus odds.
No, you wouldn't.
Against Michigan. So you might get minus 110 in a game like that. I mean, I'm probably going to get, in a touchdown game, plus 200 maybe, something around that, with still a very talented roster and all the extra incentive that you just mentioned, yeah, in this case, I think I'd much rather bet Ohio State money line on Georgia just from a value standpoint for sure.
All right.
All right, that'll do it for this week's Would You Rather. When we come back, it's our Twitter poll of the week and our feedback of the week next. This week's Twitter poll results, we asked you, will we have a Michigan-Ohio State rematch in the national championship game? Could you imagine the ratings for that? Wow. But 73% of you say no, it will not happen. 27% of you say yes. Aaron, your thoughts on these results?
I think we will. Yeah, I think we will. Now, I would have expected, trying to look at this unbiasedly, I would have expected maybe a 40% yes or 35 to 40% yes result, or maybe something closer to 50-50 even. I don't think it's a 30% chance. I don't think it's a 30% or sub 30% chance that they meet again. So, not mildly surprising is what I would say.
Well, we had an average of 17 million people watch the regular season version of the game, most watched game of the year. At times, there were as many as 19 million people during parts of the game watching it. What would the ratings be for a Michigan-Ohio State national championship game? Could that break 25? Could it get to 30?
Yeah, easily. I mean, we just saw a Big 12 championship game. What was the number on that? It was over 10 million.
Yeah.
It was over 10 for the Big 12 championship game between TCU. Now, TCU is Dallas, so that's a big market, and it is kind of a big deal down there. That's the biggest college football team in that city. But, that could be one of the biggest eyeball events in college football history, if not the biggest.
That brings us to our feedback of the week, and it's from our very own feed, because we got to talk about this for a second here. Watching halftime of the Big Ten championship game, I tweeted this out on our feed. Why is our league, network, Fox, giving Nick Saban time to politic against our own league, by the way, against our own league, because he's clearly arguing against Ohio State being in, because everybody agreed TCU was in. So why is our own league network giving Nick Saban time to politic on our time and dime? It is one thing to do it if it's part of a highlight show, right? Okay. But during the actual game broadcast, putting Nick Saban on, and this interview was almost the entire halftime. If I'm Kevin Warren, I was incensed watching that. Or am I making too much out of this, Aaron?
I don't know if there was some four-dimensional chess being played here, maybe. Because it was universally panned. It was absolutely, Nick Saban was universally panned, unless you're just an SEC slurp, which there are those out there. Thoughts and prayers to Paul Feinbaum, by the way, having to watch two Big Ten teams in the college football playoff this year. He was nearly universal. I don't think, there's no such thing as four-dimensional chess, but this may have boomeranged a little bit more.
Because his case was so weak. Look at
was
Vegas point spreads.
Stupid.
Yeah.
It was stupid. And so, I don't know. Let's just go with the four-dimensional chess theory, because any other theories are really bad. Like, why? ESPN. This is how ESPN approaches things. Big 12, you don't have a conference anymore. Ha, 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 ha. Because we're sharks and we're going to steal your two biggest brands. Meanwhile, Fox is over here, the Big Ten's TV partner, and being like, well, let's hear from another country here and see if ISIS can politic against America again live on our airwaves, and we will send softball questions to you, because that's what that kind of seemed like. Not saying Nick Saban is ISIS, but we get
what you're trying to say. Yeah,
it's that any other explanation other than four-dimensional chess is just lacking. Let's say that.
Well, even if it was poor programming, you could be right, because the argument he presented was so anemic that even if the committee wanted to do that, he left them no room to try to lie to sell it the very next day. Okay, so you might be onto something with that. All right, that'll do it for this week's episode of Bigger 10. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter in between episodes at Bigger 10. Simple enough. Remember to like, rate, subscribe, 5-star review, share, help us to find more Big Ten fans just like you. And thank you to all of you that have done those things for us already. We greatly appreciate each and every one of them and each and every one of you. Hope you're enjoying a great holiday season here. For Aaron McIntyre, I'm Steve Deace. We'll see you next week with our bowl preview right here on Bigger 10.